Nothing in this world is still. Everything you can see and everything you can't is made of motion, of pulse, of vibration. Every object, every thought, every feeling gives off a kind of signal. And that includes the bond you share with someone who won't leave your mind, the one who shows up in your dreams uninvited, the one whose name keeps finding you again through strange little coincidences that feel like more than chance. A song begins playing in a crowded store, and it is the exact song they once shared with you. You open a book and your eyes land on a sentence that sounds like something they would have said. Their birthday appears on a receipt, their favorite place is mentioned by a stranger, and suddenly it feels as though life itself is quietly whispering their name. Carl Jung believed that what repeatedly captures our attention is not always about the other person. Sometimes it is about the hidden parts of ourselves that are trying to be understood. Certain people become symbols. They carry our unspoken desires, our unanswered questions, our longing for connection, or the pieces of ourselves we have not yet fully embraced. That is why some people linger in the mind long after they have disappeared from daily life. They become more than memories. They become emotional echoes, moving through the corridors of the unconscious, returning in dreams, thoughts, and moments that seem impossible to explain. But not every coincidence is a message about destiny. Sometimes it is a message about attention. The mind notices what the heart has not finished processing. What carries emotional weight leaves traces everywhere, like footprints in fresh snow. Once you become aware of something, you begin to see it in places where you never noticed it before. Yet there are moments that still feel mysterious. Moments when a person appears in your dreams after months of silence, or when thoughts of them arrive with a strange intensity, as though some invisible thread remains between you. Human connection has always carried this sense of mystery. We do not fully understand why certain people pass through our lives lightly, while others leave marks that time cannot easily erase. Perhaps the real question is not, why do they keep appearing? Perhaps the question is, what part of me awakens whenever I think of them? Because sometimes the person who keeps returning to your mind is not only a person. They are a doorway, a reminder, a reflection of something your soul is still trying to learn, heal, or become. And when you finally understand that lesson, the coincidences often lose their urgency. The dreams become quieter, the searching ends, not because the person no longer matters, but because you have found the part of yourself that was calling your attention all along. This isn't just a comforting way of looking at things. It points to something real about how energy, awareness, and human connection actually move through the world. There are ties between people that don't follow the normal rules of distance or time or logic. Some bonds are strong enough that what happens between two people keeps rippling outward even after they've gone their separate ways. When two people have truly touched each other's lives, something stays behind. It's like an invisible fingerprint pressed into both of them. The memories, the emotions, the moments they lived through together don't just vanish. They keep existing somewhere in the space between them. Even in total silence, even after physical separation, even when one person tells themselves they've let go and moved on, that connection can still send out ripples that are felt long after the surface looks calm. Modern science has actually started to back up ideas that once sounded purely mystical. Researchers studying quantum entanglement have found that two particles, once linked, can go on affecting each other no matter how far apart they travel. This finding has captivated scientists because it hints that there are dimensions to reality we still don't fully grasp. And long before laboratories existed, ancient cultures across the world were already describing something similar. The idea that nothing is ever truly separate, that distance is more of an illusion than a fact, and that energy has the power to shape other energy. Think about the last time you felt someone's presence before you even saw them walk into a room. Think about the strange comfort of a memory that surfaces at exactly the right moment, almost like it was sent to you on purpose. These small, quiet experiences are easy to dismiss, but they point towards something bigger, a web of connection that links us together in ways we rarely stop to examine. We move through our days assuming that what we can measure is all that's real, yet so much of what actually shapes our lives happens beneath the surface, in the parts of ourselves we can feel, but never quite explain. You and this person may be tied together in a way that goes beyond what your eyes can prove. The changes happening inside you, your emotional growth, the healing you're doing, the ways you're evolving, can shift the entire dynamic between the two of you. When you start seeing yourself differently, when your awareness expands, when you get closer to your own sense of peace, the whole energetic field around that connection starts to change too. The world has a way of mirroring back whatever you put out into it. That's exactly why the energy you carry personally matters so much. How you feel about yourself, how you show up in the world, and what you believe about love and connection, all of it forms a kind of frequency, and that frequency shapes what you end up experiencing in life. If any of this resonates, drop the words "right energy" in the comments as a small reminder to yourself that you're waking up to the power that's already inside you. Let that simple act represent your willingness to understand your own energy and to walk into a stronger, more grounded relationship with your own life. The way attraction actually works can feel confusing because it rarely behaves the way our logical minds expect it to. A lot of people assume that the harder they chase something, the sooner it will come to them. But energy doesn't respond well to force. In fact, the more desperately we reach for something, the more resistance we tend to create around it. Think about what happens when you constantly chase after someone, when you keep seeking their attention, when you feel like you have to prove your worth to them, explain your feelings over and over, or beg them to stay. What you're really doing, without realizing it, is broadcasting a message that you need something outside of yourself in order to feel whole. And that creates an imbalance. This isn't because you're unworthy. It's not because your feelings are somehow wrong or too much. It's simply because energy is always trying to find balance. When your entire attention becomes fixed on someone else, you end up giving away pieces of your own power without even noticing. Your sense of happiness becomes tangled up with their actions, their moods, their choices, and that creates a heaviness, an emotional weight that both people can sense, even if neither one can name it out loud. It can be tempting to believe that if you just explain yourself one more time, if you just show up a little harder, if you just make your love a little more obvious, something will finally click into place. But love was never meant to be a performance you put on to earn someone's approval. The more you turn yourself into a case you're constantly arguing, the more exhausted your own spirit becomes and the less magnetic your presence feels. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because desperation and genuine connection can't occupy the same space for very long. The person you're so focused on might start to feel pressure they can't fully explain. They may feel the weight of expectations that were never theirs to carry, the burden of emotions that don't belong to them, and a growing need to pull away just to feel like themselves again. This doesn't necessarily mean they don't care about you. Sometimes distance shows up simply because the balance of energy between two people has tipped into something unhealthy. When one person keeps moving forward and the other keeps retreating, the relationship falls into a pattern of chasing and pulling away. The harder one person reaches out, the more the other feels the urge to step back. The tighter one person tries to hold on, the stronger the other's instinct becomes to create space. This isn't some kind of punishment being handed down to you. It's a message. It's the universe pointing out that your energy has drifted away from its true source, you. It's worth sitting with that idea for a moment, because it goes against almost everything we're taught about love. We're told that persistence proves devotion, that showing up again and again is what separates real love from a passing feeling. And there's some truth in that, when both people are moving toward each other. But when only one person is doing the reaching, persistence stops being romantic and starts becoming a quiet form of self-abandonment dressed up as commitment. It can feel noble in the moment, even a little heroic, but underneath it, there's often a hidden fear, the fear that if you stop trying, the connection will disappear entirely, which really means the deeper fear that you might not be enough just as you are. Moments like this often arrive to remind you that your real power has never actually left you. It's been there the whole time, just waiting to be reclaimed. The instant you stop chasing and bring your focus back to yourself, something begins to shift. When you stop trying to force a certain outcome, when you stop fighting against silence, when you stop hunting for constant reassurance, you make room for something new to enter your life. Energy that was once pouring outward starts flowing back home to you. And when your own energy returns to you, the entire dynamic between you and the other person begins to change. The absence of your constant presence becomes something they notice. Someone who was used to feeling you there every single day might suddenly become aware of what's missing once that energy stops surrounding them. People get used to patterns, familiar emotions, familiar conversations, a familiar kind of attention. So when that pattern shifts without warning, something in their subconscious picks up on it. Questions start to surface for them. They might catch themselves wondering why things suddenly feel different. They might notice the quiet where your voice used to be. They might find themselves replaying moments they brushed past before without a second thought. Someone who was used to being the one pursued may suddenly become very aware of the space you've created by stepping back. And this is often where real change in the dynamic begins. It isn't about manipulation, and it isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about the fact that you've reconnected with your own worth. The moment you stop abandoning yourself in order to earn someone else's love, you generate a completely different kind of energy. You become someone whole, someone grounded, someone rooted in their own inner strength. And that kind of energy carries real power, because genuine attraction was never built on desperation. It grows out of alignment, out of becoming the kind of person who no longer needs anyone else to feel complete. The connection you share with this person may also be trying to teach you something deeper about yourself. So many relationships act like mirrors, reflecting back parts of us we've never quite been ready to look at directly. The people who affect us most tend to bring our hidden emotions right up to the surface. They expose our fears. They reveal our insecurities. They show us exactly where we still have healing left to do. If someone becomes emotionally distant, it might stir up your own fear of being abandoned. If someone struggles to fully commit, it might bring attention to a quiet part of you that questions whether you're truly worth choosing. If someone pulls away emotionally, it could be uncovering a place where you've become disconnected from your own inner sense of security. None of this is meant to make you feel like the situation is somehow your fault. It's simply about awareness. Every meaningful connection carries a lesson inside it, whether or not we're ready to see it right away. It helps to remember that the sharpest emotional reactions usually point toward the oldest wounds. If a small gesture of distance from someone sends you spiraling, that intensity rarely belongs only to the present moment. More often, it's an echo of something earlier, a childhood experience, a past relationship, a moment when you learned that love could disappear without warning. The person in front of you isn't necessarily responsible for that wound, but the situation has a way of shining a light directly on it. That light is uncomfortable, but it's also an invitation. It's your own consciousness handing you a chance to finally tend to something that's been asking for your attention for a long time. You cannot heal someone else by pouring more love into them. You cannot transform another person by trying harder and harder to convince them of something. You cannot create real change by focusing solely on what they do or don't do. The only person you actually have the power to transform is yourself, And once you begin that inner healing, everything around you starts responding in a new way. The moment you stop searching for them so relentlessly is the same moment your entire perspective starts to shift. That connection no longer has the same grip on your emotions. Their presence stops being the thing that determines your peace. Their absence stops being the thing that defines your happiness. This is when your own energy becomes powerful again. It's a subtle shift at first, almost impossible to point to directly, like a change in the weather before anyone can quite name it. A message that used to feel automatic might now carry a different tone. A silence that used to sting might now feel almost peaceful. None of this happens because you engineered it or plotted it out in advance. It happens simply because you stopped filling every gap with your own anxious energy, and gaps, once left empty and undisturbed, have a strange way of asking to be noticed by the very person who used to take them for granted. The person who once felt your constant attention may begin to sense that something about you has changed, even if they can't quite explain why. They can feel that the energy they used to receive from you isn't reaching them the same way anymore. Someone who was always available has learned how to be centered within themselves instead. Someone who was always waiting around has started actually living their life. Someone who was always working to prove their love has finally discovered their own worth. And that shift changes the entire dynamic between you. The energy that used to flow in a single direction begins to find its balance again. They may start to wonder what happened. They might begin questioning why there's suddenly a sense of distance where there used to be a strong, steady connection. It can feel disorienting for them because a pattern they had grown used to has changed. They had gotten comfortable with your attention. They knew you'd be there without having to try. And once that energy quiets down, they start to notice the space that's been left behind. That space creates room for reflection. It stirs up questions. It sparks a new kind of awareness. For some people, this realization brings on a sudden fear of losing something they truly valued. They start to remember the kindness, the patience, the love that was once offered so freely. They begin noticing qualities in you they may have overlooked before. They come to understand that what they once took for granted was never something ordinary. The love that used to chase after them isn't chasing anymore. The person who once gave everything so freely has redirected that same energy back toward themselves, and that redirection creates a powerful shift. For other people, the pull comes from somewhere different. It's not just the absence that draws them back in, it's the transformation itself. They start to notice your confidence. They start to feel your sense of calm. They start to sense the quiet strength that radiates from someone who has actually done the work to heal and grow. There's something genuinely magnetic about a person who no longer needs to be chosen by someone else, because they've already chosen themselves. Someone who has found real stability inside themselves carries a completely different presence. They don't beg for attention. They don't force connection where it isn't flowing naturally. They don't feel the need to convince anyone of their own value. Their energy speaks before they ever say a word. This is exactly why the work you do on yourself matters so much. It's why your healing affects far more than just you. It ripples outward and touches the whole connection. When you turn your focus inward, you set off changes that reach much further than you can immediately see. The biggest shift happens the moment you stop treating another person as the source of your happiness and start becoming the source of your own fulfillment instead. Real transformation starts with a complete redirection of your attention. Instead of trying to control or influence someone else, your focus turns toward becoming the best, fullest version of who you are. You start committing seriously to your own healing. You start investing time and energy into your own happiness. You begin shaping a life that genuinely feels meaningful, exciting, and whole on its own. This isn't because you stopped caring about them, it's because you started caring about yourself with the same devotion you used to pour into them. You rediscover interests you'd forgotten about. You reconnect with dreams you had set aside. You spend your time doing things that actually make you feel alive again. You build a life so rich and full that one person's absence no longer sits at the center of your world. They may still be part of your story, but they're no longer the entire story. Maybe it's picking up a creative hobby you abandoned years ago. Maybe it's finally taking that trip you kept postponing, or spending more time with friends who remind you who you were before the relationship consumed so much of your attention. Maybe it's something as simple as sleeping better, moving your body, eating meals that actually nourish you instead of just getting through the day. None of these things are about proving anything to the other person. They're not strategies designed to win someone back. They are, quite simply, you choosing to live fully instead of waiting. And ironically, it's that full, unguarded way of living that tends to become the most attractive thing about you. Not because you planned it that way, but because a person who is genuinely enjoying their life radiates something that cannot be faked or forced. This version of you carries an entirely different kind of energy. This version of you feels grounded. This version of you feels confident. This version of you understands deep down that love is something meant to be shared, never something you have to chase. And it's exactly this version of you that naturally draws in healthier relationships and deeper, more genuine connections. People are naturally pulled toward those who feel whole on their own. They're drawn to confidence. They're drawn to a sense of inner peace. They're drawn to someone who knows their own value without needing constant reassurance from anyone else. The person who once looked at you and saw only your longing begins to see you through a completely different lens, the lens of your strength. They no longer see someone standing still, waiting. They see someone moving forward with purpose. They see someone who has grown more powerful, more balanced, more complete. That shift is what changes everything. A reunion doesn't come from desperately chasing someone down. It comes from becoming someone who is deeply, authentically connected to themselves. You reach a point where their return would bring you joy, but their absence would no longer shatter your sense of peace. You remain open to love, but you stop depending on it to define who you are. You want connection, but you no longer abandon yourself just to receive it. This is what true alignment feels like. This is the frequency that allows life to unfold the way it's meant to. Quantum physics is often borrowed as a metaphor for the idea that countless possibilities exist all at once, until one particular reality settles into being your lived experience. In much the same way, the beliefs you hold, the choices you make, and the emotional patterns you repeat all shape the direction your life takes. Every single day you're building your relationship with yourself. Every day you're choosing the kind of energy you want to carry. Every day you're deciding what kind of future you're willing to welcome in. There could be many different paths waiting ahead of you. One path might lead this person back into your life with a deeper understanding and a renewed capacity to love. Another path might introduce someone completely new, someone who brings qualities and experiences you never expected. And another path might lead you to the realization that the love you were searching for all along was the love you needed to build within yourself. Every single one of these paths can lead somewhere meaningful. Every one of them can lead to real growth. Every one of them can lead to genuine happiness. Every one of them holds the potential for valuable lessons and beautiful moments. What matters most isn't forcing one specific outcome to happen. What matters most is becoming the kind of person who is truly ready for the love, the peace, and the abundance you actually want in your life. It's natural to want certainty. It's natural to want to know exactly how the story ends before you're willing to keep living it. But that kind of certainty was never actually available to any of us, in any relationship, at any point in history. What is available to you every single day is the choice of who you want to become regardless of how the story unfolds. That choice is the one thing that can never be taken from you by someone else's decision, someone else's timing, or someone else's fear. And strangely enough, it's usually the people who stop needing to know the ending who end up living the richest chapters. When you start living from a place of confidence instead of fear, you naturally align yourself with better possibilities. When you choose yourself, you build a foundation that no one else can take away from you. When you truly believe you're worthy, your entire reality begins to reflect that belief back to you. The universe doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to the energy you consistently show up with. So choose thoughts that build you up. Choose beliefs that honor who you are. Choose actions that move you closer to the person you're becoming. Because the future you want isn't created by sitting around waiting for someone else to change. It's created by the transformation that's happening inside you right now, in this very moment. There will be days when this feels easy, when your sense of peace feels unshakable and the old longing barely registers at all. And there will be other days when an old memory catches you off guard, when a song or a smell or an offhand comment pulls you right back into the ache of missing what once was. Both kinds of days are part of the process. Healing was never meant to be a straight line, and choosing yourself doesn't mean you'll never feel the pull of the past again. It simply means that pull no longer gets to decide who you are or what you do next. You feel it, you acknowledge it, and then you keep walking toward the life you're building anyway. The moment you become whole within yourself is the moment everything starts to shift. You stop chasing after love, and instead you become the embodiment of it. You stop searching outside yourself for proof of your own worth, because you finally recognize that it was there all along. And from that place of quiet, grounded power, the right people, the right experiences, and the right opportunities find their way toward you. Not because you went looking for them, but because you finally became someone they could recognize.